They put up string lights for the occasion, white ones, the expensive kind that cost more per foot than my first truck payment. There was a catered buffet, a jazz quartet, a ribbon made of gold satin that Marlene Voss, HOA president, self-appointed queen of Pinecrest Reserve, cut with a pair of oversized ceremonial scissors while 140 homeowners applauded. The champagne flowed. The speeches were made. Marlene tapped her microphone and said, "And I want you to hear this exactly as she said it. This clubhouse represents everything we have built together. This is our land, our legacy, our community." I was standing at the back of the crowd in my work boots and my grandfather's canvas jacket. Nobody had invited me. I had shown up anyway. Because the clubhouse, every poured concrete foundation, every steel beam, every square foot of travertine flooring, every inch of that $2,000 building was sitting on my land. My name was on the deed. Had been since 1987, and I had known about their construction plans for 18 months. I had watched them break ground. I had watched them frame the walls. I had watched them install the roof, the windows, the HVAC system, the commercial kitchen, the Olympic-length lap pool in the East Wing. I had let them finish every single bit of it, because my attorney had told me something 18 months ago that I had never forgotten. "Owen, the more they build, the more they owe you." I waited until Marlene finished her speech. I waited until the ribbon hit the ground. I waited until the first glasses of champagne were raised. Then I walked through the crowd, introduced myself to the county land assessor who was standing near the buffet table, and handed him a certified copy of my deed. He read it, looked up at me, looked at the building, looked back at the deed. "Sir," he said quietly, "this entire structure is on your parcel." "I know," I said. "Does the HOA know?" I looked across the room at Marlene Voss, champagne glass raised, laughing at something her attorney had said. "They're about to," I said. "Tell me, have you ever let someone dig their own hole before you showed them the bottom? Drop your state in the comments. I want to hear from you. My name is Owen Calloway. I am 61 years old. I spent 28 years as a licensed land surveyor for the state of Georgia. I have measured more property lines than most people have driven miles. I know what a deed means. I know what a parcel boundary means. I know what encroachment means, what adverse possession means, what trespass means, and, most importantly for this story, I know what unjust enrichment means. Unjust enrichment is the legal principle that says if you build something valuable on someone else's land without permission, the landowner is entitled to the value of what you built. Not just the land back. The building, too. Every dollar of it. I retired in 2019 and came back to the land my grandfather had farmed outside Whitfield, Georgia. 68 acres of red Georgia clay, pine forest, a pond, and a creek that floods every spring and dries to a trickle every August. The land has been in my family since 1954. My grandfather bought it for $3,800 from a man who was moving to Florida. He cleared 12 acres himself with a borrowed tractor and a borrowed mule. He built the farmhouse where I now live. He is buried at the edge of the pine woods with my grandmother and my father. I tend their graves every Sunday morning. This is not just land. This is everything my family ever made. And Marlene Voss had just built a $2,000 clubhouse on 11 acres of it. Pinecrest Reserve was developed 6 years ago on the old Hendricks timber property adjacent to my eastern boundary. 212 homes, gated entry, manicured medians, HOA dues of $485 a month. The kind of development where the trash cans have rules about which direction they face on pickup day. Marlene Voss had been HOA president for 4 years, 59 years old, former corporate HR director from Atlanta. She had the particular confidence of a person who had spent 30 years telling other people what they were and were not allowed to do, and had never once been seriously challenged. She drove a silver Mercedes. She wore blazers the color of authority. She sent violation notices for items visible only from a drone. The first time she came to my fence line was 20 months ago. She arrived with an architect named Davis Pringle and a set of preliminary drawings rolled under her arm. "Mr. Calloway," she said, "the association has approved a community amenities expansion. Our master plan identifies this corridor." She gestured along my eastern fence line, "as the optimal location for our new clubhouse facility." I looked at the corridor she was gesturing at. 11 acres of my land. Pine trees my grandfather had planted in 1962. "That's my property, ma'am." She smiled. "We believe the original subdivision survey may have placed the boundary incorrectly. Our architect has reviewed the plat maps and identified a potential discrepancy." "There's no discrepancy," I said. "I surveyed this boundary myself in 2019. It's correct. We'd like to commission an independent survey." "You're welcome to. The boundary won't change." She tilted her head. "Mr. Calloway, the association is prepared to offer you fair market value for the corridor parcel. It would benefit both parties to resolve this amicably. The parcel is not for sale." Her smile held perfectly. "We'll be in touch," she said. She was right about that. The first letter arrived 2 weeks later. HOA stationery. Thick paper. Marlene's signature at the bottom in blue ink. It claimed that a title search had revealed a historical survey discrepancy, placing 11 acres of what I claimed as Calloway land within the original Pinecrest Reserve plat boundary. It invited me to a meeting to discuss a negotiated resolution. I took the letter to my attorney. Her name is Patricia Drummond, 63 years old, 35 years practicing property law in Georgia. She has the patient, unimpressed manner of a woman who has seen every trick that exists and forgotten more law than most attorneys ever learn. She read the letter twice. "Owen, there is no survey discrepancy. Your 2019 survey is registered. Your deed is clean. Your boundary is correct. This is a pressure tactic." "I know that. What do you want to do?" I thought about it. 28 years measuring land. I had seen this before. Developers and HOAs using manufactured title ambiguity to pressure private landowners into cheap sales. It worked on people who didn't know better. It didn't work on a licensed land surveyor who had spent 3 decades in Georgia courts. "Patricia, let me ask you something. If they break ground on my land, if they actually build something, what are my options?" She looked at me over her glasses. "Legally, you'd be entitled to the land back, plus the value of any improvements made to it. A $2,000 building on your land would mean a $2,000 claim. And if I notify them now, they stop building and we fight over 11 acres of pine trees." "Correct. But if I wait—" She set her pen down. "Owen, I need to be very careful about what I say next. Say it anyway. If you allow construction to proceed while documenting that you are the rightful owner, and then present your claim after completion, the unjust enrichment damages become significantly larger. The building becomes part of your claim." I sat with that for a moment. How much larger? Potentially the full replacement value of whatever they build, plus legal fees, plus damages for trespass during construction. I looked out her office window at the Atlanta skyline, thought about my grandfather's pine trees. "Patricia, don't send a response to their letter yet." She studied me. "How long do you want to wait?" "Until they're done," I said. They broke ground on a Tuesday in March. I watched it from the tree line with a pair of binoculars and a camera. Not because I was hiding. I was on my own land. Patricia had advised me to document everything. Every phase of construction. Every date. Every contractor's truck. Every delivery. So I did. I photographed the foundation pour. I photographed the framing. I photographed the roofing crew, the HVAC installation, the electrical work, the plumbing rough-in. I photographed the delivery of the commercial kitchen equipment, $340,000 worth of appliances for a community clubhouse. I photographed the travertine floor tiles being laid by a crew of 12. I photographed the Olympic lap pool being excavated in the east wing. I photographed the string lights being installed for the grand opening. Every photograph was time-stamped, geotagged, and filed. Patricia had commissioned an independent boundary survey in month 2 of construction. Certified, registered, unambiguous. The Clubhouse Foundation, all of it, sat inside my parcel. We filed that survey with the Whitfield County Property Records Office in month 3. Quiet, official, documented. Nobody at Pinecrest Reserve noticed. They were too busy picking out tile samples. My neighbor, Harold Fitch, 71, retired schoolteacher, had farmed his land next to mine for 40 years, came over one evening in month 7 of construction. He sat on my back porch and looked at the steel framing rising above the pine trees to the east. "Owen," he said, "that building is on your land." "I know it." "You going to do something?" "I'm doing something right now." He looked at my camera on the porch rail, at the folder of photographs on the table, at the cup of coffee in my hand. "You're going to let them finish," he said. "Every nail," I said. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he shook his head slowly. "Your grandfather," he said, "would have appreciated your patience." "He taught me most of it," I said. Harold went home. The framing crew worked until dark. I poured another cup of coffee and watched the building take shape on my land. The Callaway land deed was recorded in Whitfield County on March 14, 1954. Book 112, page 47. The legal description runs for 3 pages of precise metes and bounds language. Compass bearings, distances, reference monuments, the kind of language that a land surveyor can read like a story. My grandfather had it recorded by the best attorney in Whitfield County at the time, a man named Augustus Webb, who had practiced property law since before the Second World War, and who believed, above all else, that a man's land was his land and the paperwork should say so without any room for argument. Augustus Webb left no room for argument. The eastern boundary of the Callaway parcel was described with 4 survey monuments, iron pins set in concrete, at the corners of the 11-acre corridor that Pinecrest Reserve was now building their clubhouse on. Those pins were still in the ground. I had checked every one of them in 2019 when I resurveyed the property. They hadn't moved. Survey monuments don't move unless someone moves them. And in Georgia, moving a survey monument is a criminal offense. In month 14 of construction, Patricia received a letter from Marlene's attorney, a man named Jeffrey Ashworth from an Atlanta firm. The letter was confident in the way that expensive attorneys are confident when they believe they hold all the cards. It stated that Pinecrest Reserve HOA had commissioned its own boundary survey, their third, and that this survey confirmed the 11-acre corridor fell within the HOA's original plat boundaries. It demanded that I cease any claim to the corridor parcel and sign a quit-claim deed transferring any interest to the HOA within 30 days. Patricia called me after she read it. "Their surveyor is wrong," she said. "I know. Their 3 surveys are all wrong." "Patricia, I know. I set those monument pins myself in 2019. I have the original 1954 deed. I have Augustus Webb's field notes from when he drew the legal description. I have a certified 2019 survey registered with the county. And I have 18 months of photographs of their construction crew trespassing on my parcel." Silence. "Owen, how close are they to finishing?" I looked at my latest photographs. String lights going up. Catering company truck in the parking lot. A banner that said, "Grand Opening. Pinecrest Reserve Clubhouse. Saturday." 4 days, I said. 4 days, she repeated. "I'll be there Saturday," I said. "So will I," she said. In the weeks before the grand opening, I did something that anyone can do and almost nobody does. I went to the Whitfield County Building Permits Office and pulled every permit Pinecrest Reserve HOA had filed for the clubhouse construction. Public record. Takes 20 minutes. Costs nothing. What I found in those permits changed the nature of what Patricia was preparing to file. The clubhouse building permit application, filed 18 months ago, the same week they broke ground, included a site plan. The site plan showed the building footprint. The site plan showed the property boundary line. And the property boundary line on their site plan was drawn 12 feet east of where it actually was. 12 feet. Enough to put the entire building on what their plan claimed was HOA common area. Except it wasn't. Because 12 feet east of where they drew the line was still my land. I called Patricia. They filed a fraudulent site plan with the county. I said, "You're certain?" "Patricia, I am a licensed land surveyor. I measured the distance between their drawn boundary line and the actual registered survey monument this morning. 12 feet. Their permit application placed the building on HOA land. The building is actually on Callaway land. That's not a survey error. That's a misrepresentation on a county permit application." Long pause. "Owen, that's a criminal matter." "I know. Do you want me to notify the county attorney before or after Saturday?" I thought about it. "After," I said. "Let Marlene have her moment. It'll be the last one she gets." The grand opening was at 11 a.m. I arrived at 10:45 in my work boots and my grandfather's canvas jacket. Harold Fitch came with me. He wore his good hat. Patricia Drummond arrived at 10:55 in a dark suit, a leather briefcase, and the expression of a woman who had been preparing this moment for 18 months. The county land assessor, a man named Bill Tatum, who I had worked alongside for 12 years before I retired, arrived at 10:58. I had called him Thursday morning. I had told him I needed him to be at the Pinecrest Reserve Clubhouse grand opening as a professional witness to a property boundary matter. He had pulled the records. He had seen the registered survey. He had agreed to come. The string lights were beautiful. The jazz quartet was playing something with a lot of piano. The catered buffet had shrimp and those little crab cake things that cost $4 each. Marlene Voss stood at the front of the room in a champagne-colored blazer, holding her ceremonial scissors, beaming at 140 homeowners who were applauding the building they believed their HOA dues had paid for. The speeches were made. The ribbon was cut. The champagne glasses went up. This is our land, our legacy, our community. I waited until the applause died. Then I walked through the crowd to where Bill Tatum was standing near the buffet table. I handed him the certified copy of the deed. He read it. He looked at the building. He looked at the deed again. He looked at me. "Sir, this entire structure is on your parcel." "I know," I said. Marlene saw us talking. She crossed the room with her champagne glass and her HOA president's smile. "Owen Callaway," she said, as if we were old friends. "I didn't know you were coming." "I wasn't invited," I said, "but it's my building. I thought I should be here." Her smile held for exactly 2 more seconds. Then Patricia stepped forward. She opened her briefcase and placed 4 documents on the nearest table, one at a time, with the unhurried precision of a woman who has been waiting 18 months to do exactly this. "Ms. Voss, my name is Patricia Drummond. I represent Owen Callaway. These are, in order, the 1954 Callaway deed, recorded in Whitfield County Book 112, page 47. The 2019 Registered Boundary Survey showing the eastern parcel line. The Certified Independent Survey commissioned during your construction period, confirming the building footprint sits entirely within the Callaway parcel. And a demand letter for the assessed value of the improvements constructed on Mr. Callaway's land without authorization, $2,000, plus trespass damages of $847,000 for 18 months of unauthorized construction activity, plus legal fees." Silence. The jazz quartet kept playing for exactly 4 more bars. Then someone in the band noticed the room, and they stopped too. 140 homeowners stood in the building that was no longer theirs, holding champagne glasses, not speaking. Marlene's attorney, Jeffrey Ashworth, who had been at the buffet table, pushed through the crowd. He looked at the documents. His face did the thing faces do when a person realizes the entire foundation of their position has just collapsed. "This is," he started. "Registered with Whitfield County," Patricia said. "Certified by 2 independent surveyors. Supported by 18 months of photographic documentation of your client's construction crews on Mr. Calloway's parcel. And she placed a fifth document on the table. A copy of the fraudulent site plan your client filed with the County Building Permits Office, showing the boundary line drawn 12 feet from its actual registered location. Marlene set her champagne glass down on the nearest table. She missed the edge. The glass hit the travertine floor and shattered. Nobody moved to clean it up. "Ms. Voss," Bill Tatum said, his voice the careful neutral of a county official delivering official information, "as Whitfield County Land Assessor, I am noting for the record that the structure known as the Pinecrest Reserve Community Clubhouse appears to be located entirely on parcel number 14C0047C, registered to Owen James Calloway. I will be filing an assessor's notation with the County Records Office on Monday morning." Marlene looked at me. For the first time in 20 months of letters and surveys and manufactured title disputes and legal pressure, she looked at me without the smile. "You knew," she said. "Since before you broke ground," I said. "You let us build it. You built it on my land. I let you finish." "Why?" I looked around the room, at the travertine floors, at the commercial kitchen, at the lap pool visible through the east wing glass doors, at the string lights that someone had spent a lot of time installing. "Because my attorney told me the more you built, the more you owed me." And I believed her. Patricia filed the full claim in Whitfield County Superior Court the following Monday. Unjust enrichment, $2,000. Trespass damages, $847,000. Legal fees, ongoing. Criminal referral to the county attorney for fraudulent permit application, filed simultaneously. Jeffrey Ashworth requested an emergency injunction to prevent me from taking possession of the building while the case was active. The judge denied it. She noted that the plaintiff had registered survey documentation predating the construction, and that denying him access to his own parcel was not an appropriate remedy, while the defendant's claim of ownership had no registered support. In plain language, it was my land. The building was on my land. The HOA could not lock me out of my own land while arguing in court that it was theirs. The Whitfield County Building Permits Office suspended the clubhouse certificate of occupancy pending the fraud investigation. The building that had opened on Saturday was closed by Wednesday. The string lights stayed up. Nobody had taken them down yet. Marlene's attorney came to Patricia's office 6 weeks after the filing. He brought a settlement offer, $800,000, and a quitclaim deed formally transferring the 11-acre corridor to me. Patricia called me after the meeting. "It's a lowball," she said. "I know," I said. "The building alone cost $2 million. Their trespass exposure is real. The permit fraud referral is active. They're scared. What do you think we can get? Full replacement value of the building, plus trespass, plus fees. Or," she paused, "we take the building." "What do you mean?" "Under Georgia unjust enrichment law, you can elect to take the improved property instead of a cash settlement. The 11 acres plus the $2,000 clubhouse. Yours permanently." I sat with that for a long moment, thought about my grandfather, about the pine trees he had planted in 1962, about 68 years of Calloway family land, about what you do when someone builds something on your grandfather's pines. "Take the building," I said. Patricia was quiet for a moment. "Owen, are you sure? That's a significant ongoing responsibility. Maintenance, insurance, liability." "Patricia, take the building." She filed the election of remedy the next morning. The HOA's response took 3 weeks. Then Jeffrey Ashworth called Patricia and said 4 words that ended 20 months of manufactured title disputes, fraudulent surveys, and $2,000 worth of construction on land that was never theirs. "Our client will comply." The quitclaim deed transferring the 11-acre corridor and all improvements to Owen James Calloway was recorded in Whitfield County on a Thursday morning in November. Book 447, page 23, right next to the 1954 deed. Book 112, page 47. The way land records work in Georgia, in most of this country, is that the old deed and the new deed sit in the same archive, side by side. My grandfather's name and my name, 68 years apart. Same land. Marlene Voss resigned as HOA president the week the settlement was recorded. She sent a brief email to the homeowners citing personal reasons. The new HOA president, a retired contractor named Dale Simpkins, came to see me the following Saturday. He sat on my back porch and drank coffee and was quiet for a while. Then he said, "Mr. Calloway, on behalf of the association, I owe you an apology that I don't think any words are adequate for." "I appreciate that, Dale. What are you going to do with the building?" I looked out toward the pine trees, toward the 11 acres where my grandfather had planted seedlings in 1962 that were now mature timber, toward the $2,000 clubhouse sitting among them. My grandfather, I said, used to say that land doesn't belong to one person. It belongs to the people who take care of it. Dale waited. "I'm going to open it," I said. "Community use. Free. Any Whitfield County resident who needs a space for a meeting, a family event, a community gathering. No HOA membership required. No dues. No violation notices. No ceremonial scissors." Dale looked at me for a long moment. He stopped. "That's a generous thing." "It's his building," I said. "My grandfather's land. Felt right to use it the way he would have." Harold Fitch came over that evening. He sat in his usual chair. He looked out at the pine trees. He looked at the clubhouse. He looked at me. "Your grandfather," he said, "would have laughed for about 10 minutes straight." "And then?" I said. "And then he would have made sure the coffee was on." The Calloway deed is 70 years old this year. Book 112, page 47. Whitfield County, Georgia. My grandfather drove to the courthouse himself to file it in 1954. He wore his good suit. He paid the filing fee out of the envelope he kept in the kitchen drawer. He came home and told my grandmother that the land was theirs now, official, recorded, permanent, and nobody could take it from them. He was right. It took a $2,000 clubhouse, 18 months of construction photography, a certified boundary survey, and a demand letter that stopped a grand opening in its tracks to prove it. But he was right. Here is what Marlene Voss never understood. She looked at my pine trees and saw an opportunity. She looked at my deed and saw a document she could challenge. She looked at me and saw a retired old man who might not notice what was happening on his eastern boundary. She never once considered that the man standing at his fence line watching her architect unroll his plans might have spent 28 years as a licensed land surveyor. She never considered that patience is not the same as ignorance. She never considered that letting someone finish building something on your land is not the same as giving it to them. Know your deed. Register your surveys. Document everything. And if someone starts building on your land, know your rights before you decide when to use them. If this story felt familiar, if you have had a developer, a neighbor, or an HOA tell you that your land was theirs, drop your story in the comments. Tell me your state. Tell me your county. I read every single one. Some of them become the next script. And if you want to hear about the HOA in coastal Georgia that drained a farmer's private lake to fill their resort pool, and the water rights attorney who had been waiting 30 years for exactly that moment, hit subscribe. That story goes up next Friday. Thank you for being here. From the land, from the deed, from Book 112, page 47.